Before Ishmael ever took a breath, before Hagar ever ran into the desert crying, God had already given him a name. He told Hagar, "You shall call his name Ishmael." In Hebrew, Ishmael means God hears. So when God says, "You shall call his name Ishmael," he was saying, even though man didn't listen to you, I did. He was declaring, even though you were rejected, I still heard you. Hagar wasn't the wife, she was the servant. She wasn't the chosen vessel, she was the substitute solution. When she conceived, tension filled the house of Abraham. Sarah felt replaced. Abraham felt torn. And Hagar, she felt used. She fled. She was pregnant. She was all alone. She was unseen and she was unheard. But the Bible says the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness. He didn't find her in a palace. He found Hagar in pain. He didn't find her in worship. He found her in running. And there, in the lowest place, heaven spoke to her and said, Hagar, where have you come from and where are you going? When God named Ishmael, he wasn't just naming any old child. He was naming a moment of mercy. He was saying, even when people don't understand your position, I still recognize your pain. Even when you are out of the plan, you are never out of my presence. Ishmael became a sign that God listens to the cries of those who seem to be forgotten. He was a living testimony that grace can still find you outside of God's will. God could have ignored Hagar's tears. She wasn't the covenant line, but he didn't. Because covenant or not, he's still a father. That's why the name Ishmael is revelation. It tells us that God's ear is never too far from the brokenhearted. Even when you're outside the promise, you're still inside of his compassion. Isaac represented promise, but Ishmael represented mercy. Isaac showed that God keeps his word. Ishmael showed that God hears your weeping. The covenant was with Abraham and Sarah, but the compassion extended to Hagar. That's why God said, I have heard your affliction, as stated in Genesis, the 16th chapter and the 11th verse. He heard the sound of rejection. He heard the sighs that words couldn't explain, and he turned them into a name that carried remembrance. Now, some of you feel like Hagar. You feel displaced, overlooked, and misunderstood. But the God who heard Hagar, he still hears you. When you cry and no one answers, he hears. When your heart breaks in private, he hears. When you feel forgotten by the promise, he whispers, I see you, I hear you, and I will bless what came from your tears. That's what the name Ishmael means. It's heaven's way of saying, you may not be the plan, but you're still in my hand. If you feel unseen or unheard, take courage. God hasn't turned away. He still finds Hagars in deserts. He still names things born out of pain, and he still listens to what hearts that have no words left. Come back to the one who hears you, because even if no one else does, he does. If you believe God has ever heard your cries, comment, God still hears me.